The Tao-te-ching. I remember when I first read this when I was around 19, which was a while ago, and I knew what I was reading wasn't going to be my first and only time. It was going to be a philosophy that I would resonate in my future, that I would come back to at many various points of my life. It was just so profound to absorb. And I knew back then that my state of consciousness whilst reading it could only absorb what it could in its own capacity, and that if I was to read it later in my life, I would absorb new teachings from the same text. That was what Tao-te-ching was for me, and why I cherish Taoism possibly a lot more. It just resonates with me a lot more than most of the other metaphysical doctrines and scriptures from the major religions. There's just a lot of peace that I have found in Taoism and the ancient Chinese mode of thought towards nature, creation, and just the simple art of being with the Tao. I can talk so much about this, but let me introduce this lecture. The Tao-te-ching, often translated as the Book of the Way and its Virtue. It is attributed to Lao-tzu, who is an enigmatic figure who is said to have lived in ancient China around the 6th century BCE. Now, according to tradition, Lao-tzu was a sage, possibly a record keeper in the royal archives of the Zhou dynasty. As legend has it, Lao-tzu grew wary of the corruption that he saw around him and chose to leave civilization. At the border, a guard asked him to leave behind his teachings before departing. Lao-tzu obliged, writing what we now know as the Tao-te-ching before disappearing into the mountains. Its authorship remains debated. The text itself has become foundational to Taoism, a philosophical and spiritual tradition in China. Lao-tzu's insights into life, nature, and the universe were written in a poetic, sometimes paradoxical style, but it allows us readers to interpret this wisdom in various ways over the centuries. Just like I have mentioned, every single time I read it, I'm learning something new because I'm interpreting it in a new way from a new state of consciousness. To understand Tao-te-ching, we would need to look at some of the core ideas, which centers around the Tao, Wu-wei, and the value of simplicity. The word Tao is literally translated as the way, or typically translated as the way. Though it goes way beyond a literal path or road, it represents the fundamental nature of the universe, the flow of existence, all that is, eternal or encompassing, very much primordial. Lao-tzu suggests that the Tao cannot be fully described or named, unlike the Abrahamic religions where God has a persona, characteristics, lots of things to attribute to him, such as being called a him. With the Tao, there's nothing like that of its kind. Lao-tzu famously begins the text of the Tao-te-ching by saying, "The Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao. The name that can be named is not the eternal name." Primordial reality, God, we are assigning the names, but it, whatever it is, ultimately cannot be named if it is eternal. The concept of the Tao really harmonizes with nature and the universe, advocating for a life in alignment with the natural order, emphasis on the natural order rather than one being dominated by human desires and ambitions. It's going with the flow. Wu Wei is often translated as a non-action or effortless action, and I love this in terms of with manifesting as well. Wu Wei does not imply passivity, but rather suggests aligning oneself with the Tao, the flow state, so that actions arise naturally, without force or struggle. I do apologize for the little notification sound. In Wu Wei, we act without contrived effort, no forcing, no stressing, no worrying. We allow events to unfold organically. This concept teaches us the value of patience, humility, and receptivity, and is also one of the key teachings within the manifestation community and reality creation, where we, trust the process, enjoy it, but let it all unfold. Live in the end, but let it all unfold around you without any forced effort. But that can also be translated for other religions as trusting in God. However, this is Electron Taoism, so it is being with the flow, being one with the flow. And that leads me to simplicity, which is another key teaching of the Tao-te-ching, stripping away excess and valuing humility. Lao-tzu warns against attachment to material wealth and excessive desires, viewing them as sources of conflict. By embracing simplicity, one finds peace and clarity in the present moment. Now, just to summarize these core concepts, the time, the eternal Tao, is almost synonymous with the present moment, which is the now. So, being one with the flow, not necessarily abandoning and doing nothing, but effortlessly, spontaneously, intuitively being in flow with the Tao, and it all happens within the present moment. That is key. This leads me on to one of the most famous passages within the Tao-te-ching, which I believe is chapter 8, where the concept is be like water. Now, this is famously accredited to one of the interviews of Bruce Lee, where he teaches how to be like water, where whatever the container is, it becomes the shape of the container. It becomes the container. Lao-tzu writes, "The highest good is like water. Water gives life to the 10,000 things and does not strive." This passage illustrates the principle of Wu Wei. Water flows freely, nourishing all things without seeking anything in return. It adapts to its environment, finding the easiest path without forcing itself upon anything. Lao-tzu suggests that, like water, we should embrace flexibility, adapt to life's challenges, and nourish others without demanding recognition. And I love this part in particular. It's a philosophy or a little teaching that I had learnt in my early adulthood, late teens, where if you are doing acts of kindness with an expectation of something in return, then it sort of cancels out the intention, the kind intention behind it, because it was truly from a place of a selfish desire. And it's a way of acting in abundance when you are able to give and to nourish others, other people in your lives, the material possessions that you own, to look after them, not because it necessarily has to give you anything back, but It's because of who you are as a person, the abundance you have within you, the flexibility, and also the least amount of stress, or at least I would like to hope. In chapter 33, know is intelligence. In this chapter, Lao-tzu says, knowing others is intelligence. Knowing yourself is true wisdom. This line encourages self-awareness and also self-reflection. While knowledge about the world is valuable, true wisdom comes from understanding one's own desires, as well as their nature and also their limitations. This is truly an inner journey, and it's often more challenging for some, well, for all to be honest, at varying different levels, but ultimately more rewarding than seeking external knowledge. So much comes and goes in front of us in our external world and reality. Everything is always changing, but what remains constant in your life, what remains reliable and trustworthy is yourself. So the more you learn about yourself, the more empowering in a nourishing way for your soul that you can really grow upon and expand and evolve and elevate to a higher state of consciousness, or at least that's how I see it. Chapter 64, a journey of miles begins beneath one's feet. This is a very famous line, which underscores the importance of small, deliberate steps in any journey. Lao-tzu reminds us that grand ambitions are achieved gradually by beginning with what is immediate and tangible. In our fast-paced world, where everything is instant, quick, fast food, fast fashion, fast attention, social media, etc., this message speaks to the power of mindfulness and the value of focusing on each step rather than rushing to the destination. And this is something that I am still learning, but have come a long way in, which I guess is my gradual steps in my journey. That is so easy to become blindsided by going straight into the end result, the end desire for your manifestation. But it's learning to not just trust the process, but to enjoy it as well, which is one of my videos, my early first videos. And I truly stay by that. If you knew that everything was going to work out for you, you would not be stressing about the middle, the inner details. You would be living them and enjoying them, knowing how it is going to end. So what influences did the Tao-te-ching leave on this world? So the impact of the Tao-te-ching extends way beyond China or ancient China. In Eastern philosophy, it shaped the development of Taoism and influenced Chinese Buddhism as well, and in particular Zen Buddhism in Japan. Its ideas of harmony with nature and the virtues of humility and simplicity have left an indelible mark on Asian cultures in general. In the West, the Tao-te-ching gained prominence in the 20th century, especially among thinkers and writers interested in Eastern spirituality. Figures like Carl Jung saw parallels between Taoism and Western psychology, which I hope to explore in future videos. And Alan Watts, who is one of my favorite philosophers or speakers, popularized Taoist philosophy through his books and lectures, interpreting it as a way to counterbalance Western rationalism and materialism. In fact, I believe, other than reading Tao-te-ching, later on in my life, I returned to Taoism through listening to a lecture of Alan Watts and his translation of how they see time, because time was a subject I was very interested in, and it led me to Taoism. And there's so much to explore in this topic, which I hope again to bring to this channel, because the eternal now, the present moment, is such a key facet of Taoism, and a lot of correlation between that and what Eckhart Tolle teaches in The Power of Now overlaps with Buddhism and Zen Buddhism, but incredibly powerful. I'm going on a bit, but the concept of linear time, shifting from that to the eternal now, or at least engaging practices in shifting and reminding myself that now is all I have in the present moment, has changed my life profoundly, and I could not stress it enough. So therefore, the Tao-te-ching's emphasis on balance, patience, and simplicity has resonated within movements like environmentalism, holistic wellness, and mindfulness practices. It's opened so many doors of topics and ideas to think about, and the impact it has on us, but as well as the nature around us that we, well, what I believe we're responsible for, or one with. To summarize this entire lecture, the Tao-te-ching is incredibly profound. I really highly recommend you to read it if you haven't, and if you have, maybe if you feel the intuitive calling to read it again, I would highly recommend that too. In fact, I should probably add it to my reading list and shove it in the higher priority section, because it truly is one of the most wise books I have read. And it's just timeless, because the focus of it is primordial, it's metaphysical. It's not a religion based on time and an apocalypse or the world ending and stuff that is to happen in the future, redemption, etc. And they all have their place in the Abrahamic religions. I'm not dismissing them, but it was so refreshing for me to be able to look at it in a different perspective. And by it, I mean my life, my existence, everything that is to me right now. It's why I believe it's one of the best. If I had to choose which, as of now, which esoteric, metaphysical teachings that I felt like was best for me in manifestation, it has to be Taoism. Truly, if you practiced the concept of Wu Wei, effortless action, being in the now, less attachments, you would be a magnet to everything your soul could possibly desire, and feel nourished to what is good for you and your journey, your experience, for your avatar, your game character. It truly is. I think nourishing is possibly the best word to describe it. But that is based on my experience so far. It could change, but I could not see it change for a long while as of now. So focus on that for those that are into the reality creation. Focus on the beauty of non-attachment and the power of letting things unfold naturally. We're living in a world where materialism and capitalism and all these political terms making us feel like we have to do things when everything is perfect the way it is right now. And the right actions, when you feel like you want to get up and go somewhere or to do something, it will come to you naturally. It will not be forced. And I don't know if you've ever experienced this, surely, that the best ideas that have come to mind, or the best pieces of artwork or any type of work, surely had to have come when it was in the most natural, effortless way, as if it was written for you. And that is one of the many blessings of just accepting the Tao, accepting, trusting in God from an Abrahamic point of view. And yeah, I could go on about this, but I'd like to end this video with my disclaimer that I am by no means claiming that I am knowledgeable in everything, except that I am in the humble pursuit of wisdom. If you'd like to work with me, or just talk and have any burning questions, all my links are in my description. I also want to just give a little thank you to everyone that's been joining this channel and just being involved in the discussions and in the comments. It truly warms my heart, because it's just, I had an intention for this channel to create a safe space where we can talk about these things and make mistakes, not feel judged, ask questions, and that is what it's slowly growing as. And it's just, it's been great. I love responding and reading some of the comments on here, good and bad, to be honest. I'm not attached, but I am grateful, so thank you.